Happy Constitution Day. My name is Ann Timmer. I'm the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court. What does the Constitution mean to me? Virtually every freedom that we enjoy, every time we get to express an unpopular view, every time we get the right to an attorney, I trace that back to the Constitution. Recently, I was talking with a young attorney who told me that her constitutional law professor likened the Constitution to the mast of the ship that Odysseus sailed in Homer's famous epic poem, The Odyssey, which many of you might have read. And in the Odyssey, Odysseus wanted to pass through some islands on his way back home and wanted to resist the siren song. And so he lashed himself to the mast of the ship. To me, the mast of the ship is like the Constitution. You are tied to it through your principles, to your commitment to a democracy and to a free United States. That's what we have to adhere to, even when the siren song calls to us to vary from those principles.
We, the people, ordained and established this Constitution. And consistent with the Declaration, we established it in order to have a government to secure our rights. Those rights that are unalienable and that we are endowed with by our Creator. I view the Constitution as a sign of hope, a hope that over each succeeding generation, that no matter what differences we may have, that the Constitution is something that binds us all together as Americans, regardless of what state we may live in or where we may have come from, and that it is a unifying document in that regard. And that hope is sort of sourced from a second view that I have for the Constitution, what it means to me, and that's as a veteran. There are over 1 million Americans who have died since the beginning of our country, and defending and protecting the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The same oath I took when I was commissioned an officer out of West Point. And so I know firsthand that that oath I took that binds me to those 1 million Americans who defended that Constitution sometimes can cost you your life.
Our framers understood that rights must be universal or they're not rights at all. We must protect the rights of others, even those with whom we disagree. Today, many of our founding principles are under attack. Due process, separation of powers, freedom of speech, federalism, the independent judiciary. We must defend those principles against everyone who would undermine them. A famous warning from the founding era held that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. When Benjamin Franklin was asked what type of government we had just adopted, he said, "A republic, if we can keep it." We must never take for granted what the framers gave us.
It is the people's document. It is not the government's document. In fact, the preamble to the United States Constitution begins, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." The Constitution was designed to protect the rights and liberties of the people. And it is not lost on me that when my ancestors, like those of so many, came to this country at a time when they were fleeing conditions such as political and religious oppression, and came to this land at a time when the United States Constitution explicitly protected rights and liberties such as the free exercise of religion, freedom of speech, the right to petition the government, protection from unreasonable searches and seizures.
It's unique because it does not require any citizen or potential citizen to be of a particular race or ethnicity or religious belief. Instead, it sets forth the greatest recipe for prosperity and liberty in human history. I think of individuals like Frederick Douglass, Susan B. Anthony, and Martin Luther King Jr., who they themselves were inspired by the Constitution to push back against injustice, to improve the nation and all of its people. Instead of setting out to destroy or reject the Constitution in light of injustice in their times, instead they did the opposite. They were inspired to draw upon the Constitution. They recognized the uniqueness of the document and merely demanded that its protections and rights applied to all people. I find that inspirational.
It set up a national form of government and outlined the rights that we share and we all enjoy as citizens of the United States. There really wasn't a country in existence at that time that had a written constitution that laid out how the government was structured and the rights that each citizen would have. For nearly 250 years, our U.S. Constitution has been our guiding document. And really, if you look back, it was the first written constitution that took on these tasks and successfully implemented them. And again, as a student of history, I find that to be very special, very unique.
It delineates that our government is separated into 3 branches and talks about what those branches do and how they relate to one another, what the checks and balances are between them. It limits what it can do to its citizens. It protects the rights of the citizens. I think it's also important as we talk about constitutions to recognize the fact that the U.S. Constitution is one of many within our country, because we have the state constitutions, which are also very important. So when I think about our U.S. Constitution and recognize that it is the supreme law of the land, I do also think about the fact that there is space for the Constitution of my state and for people within this state to decide how they are going to conduct themselves, what their rights are going to be, and to provide protections that are even greater in many respects than the protections of individual rights that the U.S. Constitution provides.
And a lot of these state constitutions had, again, the concepts that were later found in our U.S. Constitution. The branches of government, the separation of powers, the checks and balances, all came from state constitutions.
These checks and balances were built into the United States Constitution, the structure of the Constitution, in order to preserve the rights and liberties of the people.
Our founding fathers left tyranny from another country specifically so that they and we could enjoy personal freedoms in our daily lives.
In the history of the world, few countries have been able to accomplish such a task.
As we all know, our nation is not perfect, but it's a uniquely American attribute to strive to improve our circumstances.
Our constitutional republic is mighty and enduring, but it is also very fragile because it requires all of us to defend it.
If I had to describe one word that comes to mind when someone says the Constitution, I think immovable boulder, which I know it's 2 words, but just to give you the idea, it is a boulder that is never moved. It sits in stone. Its principles are the bedrock upon which the foundation of our democracy rests.
I would say for me, the one word is America.
Freedom.
Fundamental.
Enlightened.
Inspiration.
Freedom.